So my second sprint was pretty design and research heavy as opposed to tech heavy. And initially, what I did was revise my design arguments to be a little bit more motivation related as opposed to purely just what they would do and why. And based on some prior background reading around communities like Stack Overflow and papers that have observed what are key factors for getting people to actually contribute expert knowledge in these kinds of Q&A sites, I sort of noted things like ease of use, reciprocity, credibility, and altruism as some motivating factors for why this specific platform and its individual features um, might motivate people to contribute. And so the rest of the sprint, I suspended this motivation argument a little bit in order to focus more on what an actual public forum um, that would allow users and experts to submit comments and suggestions and analyze example code, what sorts of interactions and what interfaces um, would look like for that. And so I then kind of initially brainstormed types of data I'd want to collect and data collection methods for how we could get things like HTML complexity, how easily adoptable or flexible code is, how we can tag code, both the code and the outcome, so that this information can then be made useful and available to learners. And so I went through 2 rounds of mockups about what these sorts of interfaces and interactions would look like. And so here is sort of the second version, the second iteration. So it was sort of targeted towards areas of categorization and comparison. So what navigation bars look better or might be better suited for, and then sort of grouping and grouping them by types of sites they might be relevant for. Again, sort of direct comparison between both outcome and code between websites. And then obviously adding your own categories, for example, tagging code to describe navigation bars in this example. And then also the next phase is justification. So how once people make these sorts of judgments or attach tags or categorize things in a certain way, how can we elicit some justifications and explanations of people's thought process and why they thought these are appropriate? And so one way was more freeform and writing just a sentence explaining their thought process, and another one was actually directly highlighting the lines of code that they thought corresponded to their tags that they had attached in a previous step. And so after sort of iterating those mockups and designing a user test and scenario in which I used 3 different pairs of real website examples of navigation bar components, which included comparing, Spotify and YouTube, Etsy and Instagram, and then Twitter and BuzzFeed. I ran a user test with paper prototypes and sort of wizarded some of the interactions with 3 users and sort of analyzing the results of that user test about, what things motivated people to contribute, the quality and quantity of contributions, and then how we can make those contributions sort of feed into a loop back to front-facing learners in another interface. And that will be the subject of my next sprint.